Hello, welcome to the Craven Chronicles. It's your go-to podcast to discuss the highs, the lows, and everything in between sporting Fulham FC. I'm John Harland. Joining me, as ever, Oscar O'Kane. Oscar, how are you, my friend?
I'm good, John. I'm good. I'm excited. We're back in the patch, which is just absolutely lovely to see. We've got our lovely little logo in the background here, and it's an exciting podcast today.
Yes, in today's episode, we'll be, looking back at that disappointing match against Palace. We won't be touching on that for too long, don't you worry. Just have to get through it, unfortunately. We're looking ahead to tonight's game against Wolves. It's a quick turnaround here. And we'll be joined, Oscar chatted to Dan Hughes from the Wolves Fancast earlier today, so we'll be showing that conversation, just to get the preview from a Wolves perspective. But Oscar, first of all, how was your weekend? You were at the game.
Yep.
How did you enjoy the game? Regardless, how's your day out?
Yeah. It was it was a lovely day out on the Cottage, and I was going there high on spirits after we'd beaten Nottingham Forest, expecting quite a good result and hopefully a lovely day out for the boys. But ultimately, by the time the 66th minute came around, I was tempted to head for the early exit doors. Obviously, I stayed to the end as a true Fulham fan that I am.
Good man.
Lived through the suffering and all the Palace fans screaming and chanting, which we're going to get to. Actually, I want to talk about the Palace fans actually as well in this little section. And but yeah, mate, it was a disappointing day, but always lovely to go to the Cottage. What about yourself? How was your pre-match rituals?
Yeah, it was. Do you know what? It was such a lovely day. The sun was finally out on the Thames. It was beautiful. Went to the Jolly Gardeners.
Class.
Pre-match tipple. Good pre-match pub actually. Recommend it. Yeah, Jolly Gardeners. Had a couple there. Lovely stroll to the Cottage. Took the scenic route through Bishop's Park. Mm-hmm. I was in such a good mood. We predicted nice 2-1 win to Fulham. We just beaten Forest. Thinking this is going to be a lovely day out.
Yeah.
And then the game was so disappointing. Went for a beer at half time on the Thames, and Joe, who I met for a beer, shout out Joe. I think you listen.
Love it. Good on you, Joe.
Yeah, he was trying to convince us to get another beer and just watch it from the tellies, but we were like, no, we've got to watch it. Got to sit through it.
Actually, before I get into my, I've got a little pre-match story which I'm going to share on the pod, which is quite funny. But what do you think about the people that just sort of sit and watch it on the telly for like 20 minutes? Because I have seen people just do that before.
They just the concourse?
Literally, yeah, just in the background, like half time gets around, get the pints in, but then they keep drinking and they don't actually get back to their seats till like the 65th minute. I've seen that a couple of times in some of the certain sections where I sit. I think that's a bit of a weird thing to do. Do you not think?
I think 65th minute that's too long. But what I would say is,
where's the cutoff? Where's the cutoff point?
Depends on the game. I've got a story for you as well.
Oh, here we go.
But generally though, I think it's. Do you know what? It's like it's your match day ticket. You can kind of do what you want with it. But I would say 65th minute is taking the mick a little bit. It depends on the game as well. But
55th minute, I think is fair.
I would say I normally leave for my halftime beer at about 39 minutes because the Hammersmith concourse. Anyone who sits in the Hammersmith end,
busy there.
It's busy. I know. How the other half live on the Riverside for you, Oscar.
Oh, mate, I have to say, it's easy for me, mate. Easier, There's so many other little stalls that just pop around, so like the queue is just like 2 minutes.
Well, so we go out 39 minutes, and then it's fine. We can get straight, get a beer, and I'd say I normally get back to my seat about 50 minutes. So
So that means that you tactically miss all of Fulham's early second half goal concedings, to be fair. That might be quite a good move in future.
Well, actually, I've got two anecdotes. Is that all right?
Oh, come on, mate.
But the first one, do you remember when we were scoring goals for fun?
Yes.
In the Championship.
Oh, brilliant.
My brother, do you remember we won, was it 5-2 in a week? Like 2 5-2s in a week?
I think we beat Bristol 6-2 as well.
Is it 6-2 and 6-2 or something?
Yeah, it was something like that.
I think my brother missed 5 goals because it's like from the 39th minute to the 55th minute or whatever.
We'd scored
having beers in the concourse. This is partly a confession as well.
Yes.
Do you remember Fulham Newcastle when Chalobah got a red card? We lost like 4-1, was it?
Oh yeah, that was a bad.
So the game was so bad. We went out for a beer at, I'd say, about 30 minutes. Mm-hmm. We were like, we got 2 in, and then the second half kicks off. We heard them score again, and we were like, should we start this off?
And you left.
And we went to the line and got got pissed in the line. It was brilliant.
To be fair,
It was brilliant.
I mean, yeah, you probably would have had a better time at the line as well, I have to say.
It was a lovely day. It was
Yeah. I always feel like, I don't know, we always keep mentioning, when the weather's shining, when the sun's shining, there's no better place.
There's no better place than Craven Cottage.
It's so good.
It is beautiful.
One other thing I just want to say quickly before we actually get onto the game.
Oh, but I think we're putting it off, aren't we?
Yeah, exactly. We're delaying the depressing conversation of that afternoon. But I was working that morning and I worked with Cascarino. And
Shout out TalkSport.
Shout out to TalkSport, absolutely, with Nat and Cass on their show. And Cass came up to me and said he's going to the game. And I said, oh, cool. Like he was doing a bit of media work, Fulham and Palace. And he was doing like Raul Jimenez against Mark Gahey. And I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Because he writes for Sunday Telegraph, etc. He has a little column. And he was giving me advice as to what's the best way to get to the ground. He's like, so should I get off at Putney Bridge and walk through the park? Like, is that easier? Or like, he said to me, like, what is the best scenic route to take? So I told him, Putney Bridge.
Yeah.
Go and get a couple of pints near there. Get there early, walk across the river, right through the park.
Bishop's Park, yeah.
Bishop's Park, get into your gantry early doors. And also it was a really nice day as well. You can tell that in the breakfast in the morning. Lovely day. So Cass, and then he messaged me afterwards saying, what a lovely stadium. Had a fantastic stroll through the park. Like, shame about the result. And I was like, I know, mate, but Cottage is elite. In terms of for a match day media experience, it's top notch. So good old Cass there. Love a bit of Cass.
Should we get onto it? We've been putting it off. I don't know how far into this pod we are, but we haven't actually spoken about any football yet. Lovely day.
Yes.
Terrible game. Of course, it was Fulham 0, Crystal Palace 2. We haven't beaten Crystal Palace at home since 2005.
I know. Well, we touched on that last week, and now that's extended.
And it seems like whenever we play them, we just forget how to play football. It looked like 11 strangers out there on the pitch. Got some stats. 62% possession, 10 shots, 0 on target.
That was the worst second half of our season I've ever watched. We didn't create anything. Can you give me one moment of like a big chance that we created that game? I genuinely, I'm looking back at the game, I can't think of one moment. One thing I didn't get. This was the biggest thing I never understood. So Palace and Forest, I think they've got quite a similar setup. You got your back three, you've got your midfield four, then you've got your target man up top, so you've got your Wood and your Mateta, then you've got your tricky players on either side, so like the Eze's and then the Gibbs White of the equivalent, right? This really frustrated me. In the Forest game, every time we got the ball, when went to Iwobi, went to Adama, when Adama got the ball, he took on Williams every time. Not once did he take on Mitchell. Not once, the whole game.
Who's a poorer fullback as well, by the way.
Who I definitely think is a poor. I mean, Mitchell's a good player, and I think he could make the England squad. Obviously, like we lack a bit of dearth there in the left back position. But Adama got the ball. He never took his man on. It was so frustrating. And I just thought, it's not like Mitchell is Maldini. Like, just take him on. He's a good player. But if Adama's cooking Nico Williams, who's had a brilliant season for Nottingham Forest, surely he can take on Mitchell. We just didn't create anything. And I have to single out one player as well. Defensively, Anderson.
Yeah. Please, well, Oscar, last week you dipped your toe into the Issa Diop club, and I welcomed you with open arms.
I'm bathing in it now.
You're bathing
I think it's like, I tell you what we're doing, we're hot tubbing Issa Diop at the moment. Like Anderson. And also the worst thing is, when the goal went in for the opener, I thought Lacroix had scored. I was like, okay.
I caught a vibe.
And then I get it's an Anderson OG, and I'm like, oh God, poor Anderson. Like, what a torrid afternoon for him.
What I would say, though, is it wasn't just him.
No.
I thought all over the pitch, everyone was... I wouldn't say everyone was shocking, but no one was good. No one was above a 5 out of 10, in my opinion. I think Lukic tried, bless him. Robertson was fine. I'm really struggling here to think of...
I have to say,
anyone who was good.
In terms of the midfield battle... I haven't seen him play live actually in a very long time, but I'm going to give him a shout out. Will Hughes was unbelievable against us. He was excellent, wasn't he? He was unbelievable. I think the biggest thing was Palace they kept winning the second balls. I can't remember when we won a second ball. So Lukic and Hughes go for it. Hughes won that every time. Spreads it to Eze, and obviously we know how good Eze is. We know of his qualities. But Palace, it was a bit of a masterclass from Glasner, the way he set up his team and the way that he got the fullbacks bombing forward. I mean, Munoz. I mean, obviously, we know he scored in the second half. He's a good player. I actually think he could move on. I think I could see him at maybe an Arsenal or maybe even a Liverpool, depending on what happens with Alexander-Arnold in the summer. But fair play to Glasner. He set up his team. Obviously, we went to Selhurst Park, beat them 2-0, put in a masterclass. They did an absolute job on us. And actually, I turned to my dad and I said, we did not deserve anything from that game. We didn't create anything. Palace played really, really well, and their fans were were so up for it. But yeah, really, really disappointing, especially after beating Forest. It's been the story of our season.
Yeah, I've got to say, touching on what you said there, any manager looking at that game, that is the blueprint on how to beat Fulham at home, or at least get a point. Like Southampton did the defensive work, but Palace just knew what they're doing. They're just sitting back. I think Forest actually sat back too deep in a weird way. But Palace sat back in their back five, couldn't get through them. And they've got the players like Eze and Mateta and Sarr who can really hurt you on the break. And they just executed perfectly. Mateta, what a player he is, by the way. Eze, we know how good he is. And it kind of answers my question. Like, why do Fulham struggle against lower half sides so much? I think it is, we say it every single week, we can't break down these low blocks, seemingly. It's so frustrating.
We don't have, you look at Palace, they've got an Eze. We don't have an Eze. We don't have a player in there.
Smith Rowe should be our Eze.
He should be, but he hasn't. I mean, obviously he got injured. We hope he has a speedy recovery. But yeah, he just hasn't. Eze is the difference maker. I mean, and also when you look at Palace historically, they've always had those players, haven't they? It was Elise last season. It was Zaha for several seasons. They've always got that. Palace always have at least one, I would say, world-class attacker. I think Eze is world-class. I think Zaha was world-class during his time. Elise, look what he's doing at Bayern Munich. He's been Bayern Munich's best player this season. Fulham have not had that. As much as I love Raul and Rodrigo, and as much as Adama's done well, we don't have a player who is of that quality on that end of the pitch, and it's disappointing to see. One player that I also want to highlight, I mean, we're doing a lot of Palace praise here, but fair play, they did a job on us. Hughes was incredible. Will Hughes was incredible. Maxence Lacroix. I'm going to say it now. That was the best performance from a defender I've seen at the Cottage this season. He was sensational. He won every single duel. Raul was nowhere near him. Lacroix has got everything. Speed, strength, agility, brilliant on the ball, really, really, really good at sort of bustling off the defenders. And we had no answer for him. And obviously, I thought he'd scored his goal. Obviously, it went down as an Anderson own goal. But Lacroix, at both ends of the pitch, was outstanding. He was their replacement for Anderson. And based on what we've watched there, I mean, Anderson was nowhere near his level. And it's a great... I mean, obviously, Lacroix is known for his, I call it a vibe, all of that kind of stuff when he was at Wolfsburg. But 30 million, what a signing he's been. I think that's a signing that's slightly gone under the radar this season. And I could see Lacroix leaving. I think big clubs will be in for him. I think even clubs overseas will be in for him because he was brilliant at Wolfsburg. He played, imagine, you take this Wolfsburg team, he was part of that defence at Wolfsburg that had Mickey van de Ven on the left and Lacroix on the right. I mean, basically the two speed merchants of the Premier League.
FIFA overpowered cards.
That's like one of the most overpowered centre-back pairings in terms of speed ability. So shout out to Lacroix. I thought he was absolutely outstanding for Crystal Palace. And especially when you're playing alongside Gahey, who is, we all know how good he was and was probably arguably England's best player at the Euros.
Yeah, well, it's funny, when Anderson went to Fulham from Palace, it's like there was some weird rivalry on Twitter about who got the better deal, where we spanked them at Selhurst Park. We're kind of giving them a bit of stick. But then, yeah, I don't know, I think they may have got the last laugh on that one, potentially. But I do think there is something wrong with Anderson. I think he will return to the player we know he is. I think that injury has really, really affected his form. The
reason I was so confident is because in the game at Selhurst, he schooled Mateta. Absolutely schooled him. And then that's when all the social media was like, Anderson, we got the better deal. So I just thought the same thing was going to happen, especially in front of the home fans at the Cottage. I thought same thing again. But the final thing we've got to touch on, I think, of course, is the second goal. Now, sometimes you just have to look at a goal and think fair play. It was outstanding. Mateta, that assist was unbelievable for Munoz. The way he just brushed aside Robinson like he was a sort of flake. Nutmegs Anderson, left foot, pings a perfect pass to Munoz. I mean, I don't know, Mateta has been sensational. Probably Palace's player of the season. And they were a side that really, really struggled at the start of the year. And then they hit an upturn of form. And Mateta has been front and centre of everything that's been great about Palace this season. And you've got to give credit to them. Bassey's defending on that goal, what did you think? Was a little bit questionable? Probably a bit. Yeah. And then Leno beating at his near post. It just seemed a little bit too easy.
It summed up, I think that goal summed up just the general performance. But let's talk before we get on to the Wolves preview, let's talk about, from a Fulham perspective, what this result means. Because of the fact we've gone, I think, from our best performance of the season against Forest, 7 days later, probably our worst performance of the season. What are the wider implications from a Fulham perspective, do you think? Do you think... I'm kind of reluctant to keep talking about
Europe.
this European dream.
Yeah.
As you said, like we're Katy Perry at the moment. We're hot and we're cold, in or out.
We are.
About like, I feel like I'm worried about being too reactionary. You know, after Forest, like, we're still in it,
Potentially.
in it. But from my perspective, I'm interested to hear your thoughts as well. I just think we're too inconsistent. We're allowing Aston Villa and Brighton to break away from the pack, I think.
Yeah.
I think that will be our downfall this season.
I completely agree. Inconsistency has been our Achilles heel the entire season. And I think especially, the really disappointing thing about that result is Bournemouth lost to Wolves at home. That was the moment to capitalise. They get a red card, Cunha scores, and I'm looking at my app and going, oh, Bournemouth are losing. So if we win this game, we close the gap to them as well. But I agree with you. I think maybe it might even be pointless to talk about the European. We've talked about it a lot, but if we're too inconsistent, what's the point? And I think that it's something that has to be really addressed. I mean, we've got Wolves tonight, which we're going to get onto later. I don't even know. I mean, the thing is, I can't even predict how that game's going to pan out. Obviously, they beat us 4-1 in the reversal fixture. And actually, that kind of kick-started a little bit of a respite for Gary. That kind of saved Gary O'Neill's job, really, that kind of result. But yeah, I think Fulham's European dream is a pipeline if we cannot show any consistent form.
Well, I'll give you, finally, before we move on to Wolves, I'll give you a stat. I did some calculations over my lunch. We played teams above us, currently in the table, so we're currently 10th. So 9 teams above us. Played 15 games, won 4, drawn 6, lost 5.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's below us. Below us. We've won 4, drawn 6, lost 5. Teams above us, 11 games, won 6, drawn 3, lost 2. So we've got teams above us, 21 points from 11 games, and teams below us, 18 points from 15 games.
Yeah.
And that just sums it up, I think.
Yeah.
That is the reason why we're not in that European race.
It's all well and good.
We still are technically, but
yeah, no, I wouldn't say we're out of it yet.
Yeah, no, not yet.
Definitely not yet. And obviously, there's still 11 games to go. We still got a bit of the chunk of the season left, and there's definitely some winnable games in there as well. We've got a couple of trickier games, but I mean, it's a weird one, isn't it? I mean, I look at the fixtures and I look at even a game like Arsenal. I'm thinking I'm more confident we're going to get a result from that than we are playing like Southampton away. Weirdly,
nuts,
just think like,
yeah,
well, because Fulham, I feel like maybe there is a slight mentality problem. Like, do we gear ourselves up enough when we play teams that we, in inverted commas, would think are below us?
should win.
That we should be beating them comfortably. But then when we play like the Arsenals, the Liverpools, the Cities, etc., the Nottingham Foresters of this season, we're slightly more fired up for it.
Yeah.
It is a shame. I think if we don't make Europe this season, it's as simple as that is the exact reason as to why I don't think we're gonna make it if we fail to do so.
And just finally though, I think a bit of perspective is important. Like we were in the Championship, 3 years ago?
True.
You know, like the fact we're going to be disappointed that look as well. We're still in it. We're still in the race.
We're still in it.
I need to check myself. I need to be like, look.
You are right though about like we were in the Championship not even that long ago. The thing that I think is just that the reason I'm frustrated is because
We know we can do it.
we know we can do it. We've got the manager, we've got the players.
Yeah.
And it's like that whole Championship thing is like we've done so well, but like you look at Bournemouth went up with us, and they're now
And Forest.
and look at how well the three of us have all done since we've come back up. So I do agree with you. Like maybe we shouldn't be. I mean, maybe we shouldn't be counting our chickens so much because it's like a successful season is us just staying up. But I look at this team with the manager that we have and the players that we have, and I'm thinking we should be gunning for Europe.
And you've looked through individual games: Southampton at home, West Ham at home, Everton. So many, even both United games. The list goes on and on.
Ipswich.
There's just games that we've messed up, basically.
And I'm delighted to say that joining us on the podcast this afternoon is Dan Hughes from Wolves Fancast. Good afternoon, Dan. Thank you so much for coming on Craven Chronicles. We really appreciate it. Now, Wolves last week, a fantastic result against Bournemouth, 1-0, Matheus Cunha. The Cherries have been one of the sort of stories of the season, bar the Nottingham Forest. Matheus Cunha, that man again, stepping up for Wolverhampton Wanderers. How would you assess the season, particularly Cunha as well, and the impact of Pereira in these last games?
I mean, since Vitor Pereira's come in, it's been a proper chalk and cheese from the horrific season that we had under Gary O'Neill. Last season he did brilliantly, but this season it completely fell away, and I didn't realise it could go so disastrous that as it has been with this group of players that we've got. 'Cause you've already mentioned Matheus Cunha there. Him and Pedro Neto last season were outstanding. Obviously, we lost Pedro to Chelsea at the start of this season, but we've still got a group of players that I thought could comfortably finish mid-table this season, and we're currently 5 points away from the relegation zone. But yeah, things looking a lot more optimistic now than they were before Christmas when Gary O'Neill was in charge.
And I have to say, obviously, we've got Fulham tonight. It's one of the evening kickoffs away. We've just come off the back of a 2-0 defeat to Palace, which has been incredibly frustrating, especially after our result against Nottingham Forest. But one thing I want to ask you as well is I think during that Gary O'Neill period, the one result that you had in there, which was incredible, was when you played us at the Cottage. And we were absolutely spanked. Mateus Cunha just with two wonderful goals. And Mario Lemina as well, a former Fulham player of ours, just pulling all of the strings. I remember that 4-1 result really well. I wondered actually if you maybe had gone to the game, and that was quite a sort of shock result in the context of we were doing quite well and Wolves were, especially in that period of the season, really, really struggling.
Yeah, I went on the day. Fortunately for myself, it was a bit of an odd game, really. I think you guys should have been 2-0 up before we equalised. I think obviously Alex Iwobi got his standard goal against Wolves, which I'm dreading tonight because I think he scored something like six in his last 11 against Wolves. So
Mm.
I'll be putting him in some form of bet builder tonight to try and provide some form of no lose situation if he does come up quids in for you guys. But yeah, I think the moment where Raul Jimenez missed that chance from the sort of 6 yard box, hit the crossbar. I think if that goes in, it would have been another disastrous day. But it just seemed to fall lucky for us on the day. Everything that Mateus Cunha touched to turn to gold on that day. He got 2 goals. I think he got an assist for João Gomez in the second half, and 4-1 was a flattering scoreline on the day. I think we were the better team after we equalised. We're still definitely flattering on the day.
And as you mentioned there, Mateus Cunha, I mean, what a player he's been this season for Wolves. Obviously, I'm sure when we get to the end of season awards, I think majority of Wolves fans, including yourself, will probably be voting him as the star man. Do you think that without Mateus Cunha, obviously, as you mentioned earlier, you've now gone 5 points clear, which is quite a nice buffer after Ipswich's 4-1 defeat. But do you think that if you didn't have Mateus Cunha, you could have had been in serious relegation form? Or do you think that all the credit shouldn't just be on him, and you think that maybe perhaps other players have stepped up since Pereira's come to the club?
I think Vitor's got us playing a lot more controlled. The team looks a lot more um, coherent to what they did under Gary O'Neill. I think he got to get the thing what went sort of against Gary O'Neill is he's very, very analytical. He spent too much of his game for me looking at the iPad instead of, carrying out the eye test of seeing what the actual players on the pitch and looking like I said, of the data in front of him. There's still 11 players that need to pick up points. We've won something like maybe 5 or 6 games, including Cup now under Vitor Pereira, where we've kept clean sheets, which is huge for any team. If you're keeping clean sheets, you give yourself a fighting chance in any game. Um, Taz obviously is the talisman where a lot of our creativity and obviously his goal scoring tallies um been effective for us. But the biggest thing for me in the January transfer window was keeping Mateus. If he'd have joined somewhere else, it would have sealed relegation for me, and the sort of the vibe and the relationship we've got with our owners at the moment, it would have reached beyond fever pitch if they'd have sold Mateus this January transfer window. We've managed to bring in 3 players in the January transfer window on top of keeping Mateus, and I think that's just made us look a lot more assured. And tonight's a big game. Obviously, we want to try and extend that cushion. The teams below us, I think Ipswich are away to Man United, Leicester are away to West Ham, and Southampton are away to Chelsea. So tonight's another chance for us to try and extend that um, cushion away from the relegation zone, and then we head again to Bournemouth this Saturday for an FA Cup fifth round. And those 2 games, if we can win both of those games, the momentum and the belief that'll bring towards the end of the season could really help us in good stead.
Yeah, I was actually going to mention if you beat Fulham tonight, which I mean, you've already shown that you can this season, not just beat us, but absolutely trounce us really on the day. Do you think that safety's all but confirmed?
No,
I think
I've
it's too
followed
early.
Wolves too long to know we never do things the easy way, Oscar.
Yeah.
So yeah, until we're mathematically safe, I'm always going to be concerned. But I'm hoping that we've turned the corner. I think we do look a lot more assured, like I just said. And tonight and this Saturday away to Bournemouth is two big chances to really try and end this season really well because we went out to Coventry in the quarter final of the FA Cup last season, and we want to try and go one, two step further this season.
Absolutely. And let's say on the basis we conclude the end of the season, Wolves have stayed up and the three promoted teams are the three ones that have gone down. What would you like to see starting from next season? Because I think in the summer as well, I think a lot of fans, maybe including yourself, probably quite frustrated with recruitment. I mean, we've seen over the years, Wolves have lost some of their best players, the likes of the Ruben Neves leaving in the world, the Diogo Jotas, the Pedro Netos. And I think there was the time, especially in the summer, where maybe the fan base thought, well, who have we signed? You signed Strand Larson as well, which I'm not sure. Maybe that may have been a Gary O'Neill signing. But what would you like to see if you do stay up next season with Pereira? Because I remember the Wolves side under Nuno. Obviously, we've got their players now, the likes of the Rals, the likes of the Adamas. They've kicked on. Would you like to see, do you think in the future under Pereira you could see Wolves try and push back in for those European places?
I mean, that's the dream, isn't it? Every fan wants to see their team in the Premier League as the minimum, but you don't want to just be a. I mean, I'm not even apologetic when I say this. I've said it enough times. I don't want to become another Crystal Palace that I'm just constantly making up. The 12 to 15 places every season. I want us to do more than that, even if it involves at least a Carabao Cup proper strong run in there as a minimum. I want to see some form of competitive edge from my club if I'm spending money to renew my season ticket every season. It's not about throwing huge amounts of money. You've seen like when Leicester won the Premier League with the signs that they made with like Kante and Mahrez on relatively low fees. It can be done if you've got a recruitment base that's you know well prepared and is able to bring in these players. We've brought in João Gomes and Andre from Brazil in the last 2 years. So the South American market somewhere where we've plugged in recently, and hopefully we continue with that. It's all about trying to keep our best players instead of just being this conveyor belt of constantly selling your best players. I think there's a we had a conversation on our channel, the Wolves Fancast, a few times where in like the last 5 or 6 seasons, we've lost our captain at the end of every season. It's unknown. You're talking going Connor Cody, Ruben Neves, Max Kilman, Mario Lemina. This season it looks like Nelson Semedo may be off in the summer. He's a free agent if we don't renew him. Mateus Cunha's wore the captaincy. Like I'm talking like six, seven captains in 6 seasons that have left. It doesn't really bring like a strong sort of continuity, does it? When I reel off the amount of exits there, so hopefully we can just start uh, building for the future, but doing it doing it the right way instead of just throwing money at the wall and hoping something sticks.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And just to wrap up, because I know that you've got a dash as well.
Oh yeah.
I assume that you're going to the game tonight. What what are you expecting when you look at this Fulham side? Who are the players in particular? Obviously, I have mentioned Raul and Adama who've played well recently, but which of the other players would you be concerned about that you think that Wolves need to stop them controlling the game? And when you look at the likes of Anthony Robinson, he's got 12 assists this season from left back. I mean, what do you think that Wolves need to do, that Pereira needs to do tonight to try and stop Fulham's free flowing football?
I mean, I'll come out of it straight from the off. I was massively annoyed with Anthony Robinson last weekend. He was in my fancy Premier League team, and he's really let me down. So I'll be having a word with him tonight if I come across him outside the ground.
Mm.
What's the latest on the Mill Smith Rowe? I read he was a doubt yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's question marks still. He may make the bench, but I'm not sure that potentially he won't be starting. But I mean, I think if you ask a lot of Fulham fans, I think Smith Rowe hasn't exactly showed levels of consistency that we've got with our record signing with that 35 million. He's shown glimpses in his moments, but I think over a consistent period, you turn to the likes of the Robinsons, the Alex Iwobis, who have been there every single week, putting in 7, 8 out of 10 levels of performances. But I think obviously from what happened with the 4-1 game, I think it's going to be a brilliant game. I mean, as a Fulham fan, I'm just so worried about Cunha. I think if he's on his day, he can take on any defense in the league. He can rip apart any defense. And I look at your last two games, obviously beating Bournemouth. I know they went down to 10 men, but still going to the Vitality Stadium where lots of teams have failed. Arsenal have gone there and lost. City have gone there and lost. You look at the game before against Liverpool, probably pretty unlucky to come away with that with a defeat. That second half performance I thought was fantastic. There was the moment with Canate, maybe he could have got a red card, and Cunha with an outstanding finish. So as a fan, I'm not too optimistic tonight. I actually think that we might lose this game. We've picked up more points against teams above us than we have from teams below us this season. And I think Molineux is a ground where we have had pretty bad luck. I remember a few years ago, Mitrovic was there, 0-0. He has a penalty in the 82nd minute, fluffs it. I think last season as well, I think you defeated us as well. I don't think we've got a very good record at Molineux. So I'm fearful for tonight. But just as a final thing to say, what would be your score prediction?
I'm still like I'm just reiterating what I said earlier. I mentioned Emil Smith Rowe a moment ago. Alex Iwobi's still the guy that we've got to keep quiet tonight. He's got that much of a good record against us. There's always a fear when your former players come back to play against you, isn't there? And
Yeah,
keeping Raul and Adama quiet will be a difficult task tonight. But I'm hoping purely of the fact that you've just sort of mentioned it there. We've got a really good record against you guys at home. Your record against teams below you isn't great this season. I think like the teams, the players in Fantasy Premier League who've used the assistant manager chip a lot would have went Glasner against you guys based on your record against teams below you. So I'm hoping we've got enough based on those two sort of stats to get the win tonight. But I think it'll be a tight game. I think maybe 2-1 Wolves.
perfect. Thank you so much for coming on. I really, really appreciate it. I know it was a very short notice, but Dan, that was Dan Hughes from the Wolves Fancast. Thank you so much for coming on, and you take care. All the best, mate.
Yeah, nice one, Oscar. Take care of yourself.
And that was Dan Hughes there. Dan, thank you very much for coming on at such a short notice as well. I just interviewed him basically 2 hours before we hopped onto the podcast, so I really appreciate taking the time. He's going to the game tonight, kind of similar to what we were just talking about in terms of Fulham and Wolves. You don't know what you're going to expect. Fulham could turn up and beat them 4-0. We could also turn up and get thumped 3-0. We've shown real signs of inconsistency, but we touched a lot on Matheus Cunha. I think I just want to talk to him, just get that first, just as we do this preview. Cunha is outstanding. And one of the things, as you will see in the footage, I asked him about, like, realistically, do you think Wolves would have been in the position without Cunha? And he basically said that they didn't think that they would be. I mean, he has been a shining light. And I think it's a really, really interesting one. Obviously, you look at them in the table now, after Ipswich lost 4-1 to Tottenham, they got a brilliant result against Bournemouth. They're 5 points clear, 17th in the table. They'll obviously be looking at the 4-1. Obviously, Gary Neal was the manager at the time. They've now got Pereira, who, by the way, I'll be honest with you, never really heard of him that much. Came from Saudi. He's come to Wolves. Lots of question marks, lots of eyebrows were raised when he arrived. And that first game, I mean, we know how poor United have been, but he has got some very, very good results for Wolves. And even against Liverpool at Anfield, I thought they were pretty unlucky not to come away with a point from that game. I thought the second half they were fantastic. But John, what are your thoughts on this clash? It's one of those ones where I'm just not surprised. Like, when we'll do our predictions later, I could see us losing this game. I think if we can't control Cunha, he'll run the show and he'll tear through that defense.
As you alluded to, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. If you're basing it on probably like stats and trends, we'll probably lose because they're below us. They're 17th. So it's a really weird one. But on paper, they are 17th in the league. That win against Bournemouth is absolutely crucial for the relegation battle. They're now 5 points adrift from Ipswich, who I do think. I think it's not looking good for the bottom.
Yeah, actually, I was going to say, do you think let's say Wolves win tonight? Is that it? Is that the relegation race over?
I think even if they lose, I honestly, I think it's looking pretty bleak down there. I think even if we beat Wolves, I think the bottom three. I hope I'm wrong, by the way, because
of course,
nothing against Wolves. I have nothing against Wolves, but I think it's bad for the Premier League having the three sides keep coming up and down like that. But as you say, Matheus Cunha, he is that Eze. You know what I mean? He is that spark that can win you a game. And it'd be really interesting to see how we line up. If we probably have to go with Pereira instead of Smith Rowe, I'm hoping that could be effective.
A bit more energy in the midfield, I think, might be needed in there.
But yeah, but in terms of Wolves, though, they're looking at their form now. They did lose 4 games in a row not so long ago, but they were against Forest, Newcastle, Chelsea, Arsenal, and they got some really good wins. They've had ever since Pereira's come in, they've had some really hard fixtures, all top 10 teams, and they've managed to beat, United, famously not top 10 team.
Yes, of course, and Spurs as well.
Yeah, point against Spurs, win against United, win against Villa, win against Bournemouth. So they're punching above their weight a little bit with those results. And then Cunha scored 3 in his last 3 consecutive games.
I think a player as well that's important to highlight, the player that we desperately wanted to sign, Andre's been good.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Andre's been excellent for Wolves. It's slightly gone under the radar. His ability to spread the ball out of play, his ability to get the ball under pressure, spread it 60, 70 yards on either flank, just to relieve a bit of pressure for Wolves. And I mean, and Dan made a really good point, I think, as well, that tactically under Pereira, I think that Wolves have really stepped it up. They just seem like a more cohesive unit than what we had seen under Gary O'Neill. And he was saying a lot of things about Gary O'Neill. But,
Really?
it was really good. It was excellent. But with the Pereira situation, I think he sort of alluded, a lot of Wolves fans didn't really know what they were expecting, but they just seem like a much more organised, disciplined side. And, of course, Cunha will get his flowers, but everyone else, I think, in that team has really, really, really stepped up as well. I think defensively as well. I think Jose Sarr as well, I think him coming back into the team. I think, obviously, they've floated a couple of keepers, with Johnston as well, playing in there and around. But I think, all in all, I like Wolves. I think they're a great club. I work with a Wolves fan. He's my producer, so I definitely, if he's listening, and I don't want to say just saying any anti-Wolves slander, but they're a great club, and they will. I agree with you. They're going to comfortably stay up this season. They will. I think we mentioned this earlier. We actually mentioned it before the 4-1 when we obviously lost to them. I thought Wolves were in big trouble under Gary O'Neill.
Sure.
And I think the important thing to think about is over the years they've lost their star players. They've lost the Ruben Neveses of the world. They've lost Max Kilman. I mean, if you take last season, they lost their best defender. They lost their best winger, Pedro Neto.
Didn't replace them, really.
Haven't really replaced them. They signed Strand Larsen, So there were lots of question marks, I think, and criticism, probably rightly so, from Wolves fans about their recruitment. But Wolves will be fine. I think, obviously, their only worry next season is, can they keep Cunha? I think it was huge that they got through January keeping him. That was massive. I think if Cunha had left in January, Wolves could have been sort of up a creek without a paddle kind of situation here. But look, it'll be an exciting game. John, I mean, score predictions. I honestly don't know. From my perspective, I'm probably going to go, I mean, this is probably the first time I've ever done this on the podcast. I'm going to go for a draw. I think I'd probably go for like a 1-1 kind of, or a 2-2 kind of situation. But I don't know. I mean, do you think that Fulham maybe will be really fired up for it? Do you think Marco will be saying to them, look, we can't count our chickens. Yes, Wolves are 17th, but he's got to try and get the players more motivated and fired up because of what happened against Crystal Palace last week?
Yeah, I agree. I think I'm going to play it safe for draw. Just looking at some of our results, we actually haven't drawn. We went through a phase of drawing every single game, it seemed. We haven't drawn in our 6. So we're due a draw.
Yep.
But yeah, in terms of the game, I'm really interested to see how it pans out, to be honest with you. I don't know what to expect. I'm hoping there's a little bit of we can do lineups as well.
Absolutely.
It was interesting to see. I kind of want to see a bit of a shake-up in there, partly to keep things fresh for United on Sunday. Not necessarily rest players, but I would rest Iwobi, I would say. He's the only player I think needs a rest. He looks shattered. But I want to see something different. I want to see like we're up for it. I know it's a really basic thing to say, but against Palace, it didn't look like they wanted to be there.
Absolutely.
So to be honest with you, even if we don't win, I just want to, even if we lose, I just want to see the attitude. I want to see the mentality better.
100%. The attitude wasn't good enough for me.
No.
Nowhere near good enough when we were playing Palace. So I think we've really got to be up for it. And of course, look, as we said earlier in the pod, obviously we don't want to talk about Europe all the time because it's like we win 1 week, we lose 1 week, we win 1 week. We're just going back and forth. But we beat Wolves. It's good. Boys get a bit more momentum heading into obviously a monster FA Cup game. I'm very excited for it actually on Sunday. I will be watching it. Also, I think I will be watching the game tonight. I'm hoping it might be on one of the TV streams, but we'll just have to see. But obviously we win. We put ourselves right back into the mix again, and we've got to try and not. I don't want our season to slightly peter out a little bit. This could be the problem. Because it's like we're not going to go down now. And then maybe the players think, we've just lost to Palace and maybe our European aspirations are on the wane. No, I think the boys need to just say, right, Palace was poor, but let's just get over it. We look ahead to Wolves. We win that game. We have great momentum heading into, in my opinion, the most important game of the season, Manchester United in the FA Cup, without doubt. Actually, are you going to be getting a ticket for that game?
I'm not. I think are they sold out?
Are they all sold out? Damn, I probably should have been a bit more organised about that.
We'll have a look when we start recording.
100%. But it's important that we don't try and just say, we've lost, maybe Europe's over. We've got to go and beat Wolves. We've got to show that the players have got to show us and the fan bases that they've got the right attitude and the right application to say, no, we do want Europe and we're going to show you this much Because Molineux is not an easy place to go to. It really hasn't been. Even Liverpool struggled there this season. Manchester City struggled there this season. Manchester City barely beat them this season. Arsenal beat them, but it was a sort of, they got a red card. I mean, they've had their difficulties there. So it won't be easy, but I'm really, really hoping that the boys get over the line.
Right, and finally, let's do lineups. Let's assume that the following players are out: Kenny, who went off with a knock, Nelson, Wilson. Let's assume Smith Rowe's not available, and obviously Tete. I would shake things up quite a lot, actually.
Oh,
Stephen Bender in goal? No.
Never.
Bert Leno, Robinson, Bassi, Cassagna, Diop.
Yep.
I'm getting him in there.
I knew you were gonna
Midfield,
say that.
I'm shaking it up. I'm resting Lukic. He's on 9 yellows. If he gets a yellow tonight, hypothetically, would he miss United?
I think he would actually.
So
he would miss the FA Cup game.
Rest. To be honest with you, I think he deserves a rest anyway.
He needs to
start
rest.
Berger as the 6. I'll stick AP in the 8.
Yep.
And I'll start Josh King. I know.
Wow, that is radical.
I've been critical of Pereira in the 8, but to be honest with you, I just wanted to shake things up a little bit.
Yeah.
And then front 3, I'd go Willian start, give Iwobi a bit of a rest, Muniz, and Adama.
Yeah.
Just something a bit different.
My team's a little bit different.
Good.
Same
Make
keeper.
it interesting.
Same back 4.
Yeah.
But I would play Berger. I'd play him alongside Harrison Reed.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I do Harrison Reed.
Yeah.
I think Reed's not had enough minutes. I think he'll be gone in the summer, actually. He's probably sitting there thinking, I'm not getting anywhere near the game time I probably deserve. I like Harrison Reed. He's got so much energy, and I think we didn't have that in the midfield against Palace. We need someone like, I always call him a terrier, but that's literally the best way I can describe Harrison Reed. Never stops running, never stops giving up. Wolves were actually linked with Harrison Reed. I remember they desperately wanted him in the
He
summer.
seems like a Wolves player. Do you know
He's
what I mean?
definitely a Wolves player. We've got to make sure that we stop that Gomez and Andre midfield pivot. And I think we need a Harrison Reed in there just to sort of press them, hurry them, try and stop Andre getting on the ball as much. And I put Pereira in the 10. And I do Iwobi with Adama and Raul. Although Muniz could be a game for Muniz. I mean, I'm looking at Wolves' backline just here. Totti, Gomez, Bueno, and Matt Doherty.
We can get at that.
We can get at that. I mean, Raul obviously will be really up for probably trying to get a goal.
True.
against
Raul and
Sulk.
Adama will be up for it, won't they? Yeah.
Big time. But Muniz, again, I thought in the Palace game, Muniz was bought in way too late. But we got if Raul's struggling, maybe play a front 2 as well in the second half if we're trying to get that goal. But that's kind of the lineup I go for. But I do like your Josh King shout. I want to see a lot more of Josh King coming off the bench.
Also, players with something to prove, which Harrison Reed could be a good shout with in that respect as well. Then, yeah,
100%.
That wraps up today's episode of Craven Chronicles. Thank you, Oscar, as always, for joining me.
Top man, mate. It's been a pleasure.
Enjoy the game tonight, whether you're watching on telly or you're following along on Twitter or whatever. Hopefully, we can get back on form. So I think it was didn't show our true selves against Palace. On Thursday, we'll be releasing our preview for that big clash against Manchester United. I cannot wait for that one. That is going to be a monster game. I'm delighted to say we'll be joined by Laurie Whitwell from The Athletic and Talking Devils podcast. So look forward to that one on Thursday. Thanks for listening, and as always, up the Fulham.